Greetings, travelers. I'm your host, the C-Dot that knows a lot, Dr. Waluigi. As a kid, I never really grew up reading or even collecting that many comic books. Don't get me wrong, I did read and collect a lot of manga and some graphic novels when I was in high school, but comic books themselves never really interested me as I never found a good time to start reading the comics, or I never found a comic book I was interested in reading. But thanks to reviewers like Linkara and doing some research myself, I found that I could pick and choose which comics I wanted to read. And one of the characters that I started to collect for is an obscure DC character that, while having some minor differences, reminded me a lot of She-Ra. She's one of the few magical girls of the DC universe that I wish had more stories about her, but the comics we did get with her are just as good. This is my review of the first issue of the Bronze Age run on Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld. Created by writers Dan Mishkin, Gary Cohn, and Ernie Colon, Amethyst first appeared in the Legion of Superheroes number 298 in April of 1983, though this was just a short preview of the character, and she would get her first full comic story a month later, where we would learn that she was a young girl named Amy Winston who, upon her 13th birthday, is taken to a place called Gemworld, where she not only ages an extra 7 years, but learns that she's the heir to the throne of House Amethyst, which was taken over after an evil man named Dark Opal killed her parents, leading to her nursemaid and teacher sending her to Earth, where she now must help the people of Gemworld by defeating Dark Opal and his evil forces. The character was mostly prominent during the early and late 80s and has only made a few cameos throughout the 90s, 2000s, and 2010s, including getting a series of shorts on Cartoon Network's DC Nation shorts. However, while the character has gotten a small resurgence in certain pieces of media, including a comic reboot as well as a graphic novel as of 2020, sadly nothing else has come from this character, which is a shame because I found her to be quite interesting, and I think fans of She-Ra would find this character enjoyable to read as her comics are very reminiscent of that TV series, whether you read the Bronze Age run or the modern run. Though that may be why she never got that popular, as her stories really do feel like they only work for a select group of fans. But hey, it's nice that fans got something that could have been an inspiration for She-Ra at the very least. For just this first issue, I have to say that I was very surprised at how dark and more mature the writing was. As someone who has only read a few comics here and there, as well as someone who is more familiar with the bigger named superheroes of the DC universe, I was not expecting this comic to go as dark as it did. We have a lot of scenes where characters get killed, maimed, and this first issue includes scenes where our main character is almost raped and is seen in the nude, though we don't see anything more than her underbreast, but still, for a comic that was marketed to kids, that's very surprising to see considering the time period this came out, and the fact that the Comics Code missed that moment. Overall, I'd say that this is one of the few DC comics that I've read that really reflects more of the time period like the early 80s well, which is probably why the character hasn't transferred well into the modern age. Don't get me wrong, Amethyst isn't a bad character, and she has popped up from time to time in other stories and DC mediums, but I feel like she doesn't fit in with the rest of the DC universe because her stories are so self-contained. Sure, she's helped the other magical characters of the DC universe, and been a part in some of the bigger story events like Flashpoint and Future's End, but other than Dr. Fate being involved in some of her later issues, no other DC character really interacts with her or the events of her comic run. But I'm getting off topic. Let's talk about the art for this comic. Much like the other He-Man comic that was done by DC that I reviewed, the art for this comic is very similar, and while it is of the same quality as those comics, I did notice a few moments here and there where the art looks really weird and the designs looked a little silly. For example, in one panel, we see the Guardian named Granch who goes to rescue Amethyst, and in one panel we see him bow down to her, and it looks less like he's bowing and more like he's got one of his legs broken. It's not the worst thing, as the rest of the artwork is pretty good, but it's just something I noticed while reading it. As far as the designs go, I actually like a lot of the character designs, and the world itself is very reminiscent of Eternia. Which doesn't surprise me, as I think the artist might have seen the show and taken some inspiration from it, though that's just a theory of mine. But the one thing that I can't take seriously is the design that Amethyst has on the cover and in one of the panels where she learns of her backstory. The majority of the design is fine with one minor exception. that headdress or crown. It looks like she's wearing a giant shell on the top of her head. Again, it's not that distracting and it's just a minor nitpick, but it looks so stupid, and since this design is also on the front cover of the comic, which is just a terribly bland looking cover anyway, it makes me wonder what kids thought of when they saw this comic when it came out. Thankfully, the creators might have seen how dumb this design was and changed her look to something that was simple but effective. As far as first issues go, this one is really well done in the writing department, but it does falter in some of the art department. I feel like this character will appeal to fans of the 80s fantasy genre, but if you're here to see if she's a great superhero, then this first issue won't do anything for you. Overall, I give the first issue of Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld a 7 out of 10. A good start to this character, but it does falter quite a bit and won't be appealing to any DC superhero fans. Thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Waluigi. And remember, don't judge a book by its cover, 'cause you'll never know what's inside. Good night, everyone.